Welcome to the Roundtable Marketing Podcast, the podcast where marketers and people who buy marketing come together. My name is Nick.
And I am Brian.
Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, but I realized every time I've ever listened back to the show that I cannot introduce myself without feeling awkward.
Well, I will say we are recording on Halloween.
Did you notice what I put up? The classic
War of the Worlds.
The War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, in my camera view, I only see War of the, but I think...
Oh, well, now you know.
Context clues.
I found a vinyl of it at a Goodwill 100 years ago, and it's in my stack of vinyls, and that's our featured presentation for today for this spookiest of holidays.
Right. Well,
second only to Christmas, because Christmas scary is much scarier.
You think that Christmas scary is scarier than Halloween scary, and why?
Just
would you
like
think
Christmas romance is more romantic, and Christmas action is better action. If you add Christmas to it, it's better.
So you think Gremlins is a truly frightening story and tale?
Christmas just ramps up the emotions of anything. You know, like if I gave you a sweater today, you'd be like, thanks for clothes. But if I give it to you on Christmas, it's a gift. You know, like it's something like could be important and emotional. Like a Christmas romance movie, way more romantic. Christmas horror movie, way more horrific. It's you just Christmas plus something else makes it more of the thing it was.
Yeah, there was a movie that came out last year called Terrifier 3, and I would not recommend it to you or anyone who doesn't want to see violence. But this movie marketed on Christmas. It put the main monster in a Santa outfit, and that was highly effective because people wanted to see...
because the first two Terrifiers, if I recall from the description of the scary
marketing,
movie with the clown, was not Christmas set, correct? So like they really said, you know what we're going to do is for the third time's the charm, we're going to ramp it up and make it Christmassy. Yes. Now there is a point of diminishing returns. So if you make the theme of it Christmas scary, I don't know. I don't know if it's as scary as much as it's dumb because it's sort of like suspension of disbelief gets ruined when it's Santa Claus killing you, you know? Like that's not it for me. But if you fell in love with Santa Claus, I'm sure that's already a Hallmark movie. Right? Well, I mean, that's the Santa Claus 2. Duh. That's a great movie. Yeah,
I keep thinking about how we tie this back to marketing, and these movies are marketed, but I remember a Hallmark movie called Christmas Together with You.
Mm-hmm.
And I swear that these Hallmark movies are SEO.
Mm-hmm. They are. They really are. No, the SEO of it.
Titles,
so this is actually something. So when my son was born about 10 years ago, I read this article on why YouTube is broken, it's fascinating because 10 years later and you're like, well, it still works. No.
And this is from the perspective of a parent. You're reading this, right? I mean, is that kind of what it's
apparently about? No, yeah. I truly couldn't leave that one where it was.
Yeah.
No, when I read this article, I thought it wasn't good for me, but especially for a parent. So when my son was born, this story is going to connect, and you're like, where are we going? It's coming back hard, okay?
I have faith.
When my son was born, pretty soon after, you know, like we're young parents, and we don't really understand how much screen time, you know, and blah, blah, blah. All that's every conversation every parent's having right now, you know. We didn't really understand that. And so we were just tired, and we would just lay in our bed, and we would pop on something that would distract our, like, you know, my son was a little advanced, but like at 9 months old, he was waking us up and wanted to be very engaged, and we're just dead. So we would just be like, you know what we can do is we can play nursery rhymes. And so we would turn on Little Baby Bum, which was at the time the number 6 most watched YouTube channel in the world, okay? So like, which is kind of crazy to think, right? But it was a sweet thing. I still am a proponent of Little Baby Bum. They would take nursery rhymes and they would make very simple 3D animations to them. They were always wholesome and always cute. The music was not terrible, which is a thing, right? And so we would turn that on. Well, YouTube will autoplay. And so after it would be the weirdest stuff. Yeah. And like my brain is like, what is happening? So it would be a pure white background, like when Morpheus takes Neo not into the Matrix, but into the construct. And he's showing him like things in the Matrix, just a white world, you know? It was that world. And then it would be like 6 monster trucks carrying different Easter eggs And the Easter eggs were like, one was the green one and it was the Hulk. And then one was the yellow one and it was SpongeBob SquarePants. And one was pink and it was Peppa Pig. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, there's no way that these are in the same shared universe. And the monster trucks would just do something procedurally. Like one would drive up and it would like drop off the egg and the egg would crack. And then it would do in this horrible distorted computer voice, it would be like, green. You know, and then like the
your memory of this is remarkable. I just want to point out.
The shocking way I'm going to turn this story back into what you asked me is going to blow your mind. So all these things pull up. I'm like, what is happening? This is so weird. Okay. So then across my world comes this article, and it's this computer engineer, and he's talking about YouTube and saying this is why YouTube is broken. They're just broken for 3 reasons. And this is, at the time this was true, I would say it's probably been sort of solved, and it's also way worse now, okay? But certain aspects are worse, certain aspects are better. So at the time, though, what was happening was 3 really weird things, and it was hitting toddler programming a lot, right? So you have to start with this. The first weird thing was that people were creating shows based off of the algorithm. So it really was search engine optimization. So the reason why I was watching something that had the Hulk and Peppa Pig and SpongeBob SquarePants in it was not because they're different colors. It was because they were popular search terms on YouTube. So they were picking those. And why were they eggs? Because surprise eggs were a popular search term. So the name of the video, if I had looked at the name of the video, I didn't. This was autoplay, right? When I looked at the name of the video, it was called Hulk, Peppa Pig, SpongeBob, Spider-Man, surprise eggs, trucks, all of these words. And it made no sense. But they were all just keyword stuffing into the titles because that's how YouTube position things, right? So the keyword stuff the titles, which is not a good methodology today to do SEO. It's often considered to be like gray hat or black hat SEO. But even more, Google has gotten smarter at realizing that was happening, right? So they don't trust that to just happen anymore, right? But this is the way we were pushing it with YouTube. So that was problem 1, was people were making their videos based off of the things that were popular, which seems like a strong SEO play, but it lost its soul in the process, and it really was soulless. Problem number 1. Problem number 2 was that these were being created by non-English as a first language people, which there's nothing wrong with somebody who's ESL speaking English. In fact, oftentimes those are really interesting points of view, and it's great stuff, right? However, when you're teaching a child to speak English, you don't want them learning from someone who may not have a full grasp on it in a way that they may learn their grammar incorrectly, right? It's not that someone that isn't completely proficient in the language is their second language, but the people who are creating these were mostly coming from countries where English was rarely, if ever, spoken.
And importantly,
naturally.
they're not probably educators, and they're not looking to educate. No. They're looking to transfix kids on YouTube for as long as possible with no regard for those children's development.
So 1, the hook is already flawed because it's what's popular. The second is that they were not English speakers, so they were not curating this well. But then the third problem was procedurally generated videos. So no editor was actually making these videos in the first place, right? So I was saying it's gotten worse. It's like AI is even worse now, right? And so like back then, these were just procedurally generated in their software. And eventually, the person editing it was not an English speaker, and then they were picking the things because of search engine, right? The fourth problem was they were also training bots to watch videos to give them fake credibility. So watch this vicious cycle. What is popular, chosen by someone who doesn't have a firm grip on our culture or language, then create something with a robot, and then trains robots to watch it, which make things popular, which are then this circle is really, really vicious, because what happens is you get to this point where your kid is watching really weird content. Thankfully, my wife and I did the right thing, and we literally deleted the YouTube app, and we never used it again. We never installed it again, right? We never let our kids do that. But that vicious cycle right there is the most perverse version of SEO, which is going back there. Now, let's go back to why is it better today? One, Google improved SEO on their websites with the helpful content update a few years ago, where they moved away from the focus on backlinks, which were getting stuffed and were an easy game to play. They value a backlink. They just value a good backlink. The overvaluing of keyword stuffing. And then even recently, the overdoing of like answering questions. It's why on a recipe, you can never find a good recipe because you got to scroll for like 45 minutes to get to the one. You're really just finding the recipe that is not the best recipe, but it was the one with the best SEO. So Google got to the helpful content update, which is improving a lot of these experiences. Then comes AI. And so even greater for SEO is the idea that your content is helpful because now you have someone searching your page that is English as a first language. It's called AI, a large language model that's trained on English to figure out the context of what your post says, what your webpage says, right? So those are all trained. So Google got better at that. AI is good at that too, right? And Google, I mean, we're using the word AI and usually we're meaning LLMs, but Google is and has always been artificial intelligence. That's what it's doing. It's algorithmic programming. It fits into it. We don't treat it as what we would call AI when we talk about LLMs. That's a narrow use case. That's large language models. Google is a much more sophisticated, super artificial intelligence in and of itself. The search function is, the ads function is. All of those are really exciting and very deeply programmed algorithms to the point where it's not even just artificial intelligence in the sense of the category. Human beings could not explain the way Google works today. Like there is no human being at Google who could actually tell you how it works. It's now a machine that can operate on its own. You've got this world where that's happening, right? So good news, Google and Google as the avatar for the search industry has gotten much better at looking at your content and making sure it is the answer to what the person is searching for. And there's a lot of pay to play, but other than that, you're getting the answer you're looking for, right? And the 10 blue links work. AI is even better at answering your questions and better at doing that. So as a search engine, quote unquote, AI is extremely powerful, in which case you need to be programming your SEO for GEO because that's actually getting you into the AI world and that's getting you through that. That's what you want to do is you want to program your website for that value so that you're showing up in a chat prompt response too. So that's where it's getting better. But where it's getting worse is the AI slop. So the procedurally generated, now it's like, well, it's being procedurally generated by a non-human completely, potentially by someone who doesn't speak English at all because they don't need to anymore, right?
Yep.
And so there is this world where like the slop is much sloppier and it's much worse and much weirder, and the fidelity of the slop is much better. So you've got content for kids now that you really cannot trust, because before you would have never ended up with the white room video if a human executive producer in the United States or an English-speaking producer had created it. You would never see that, and like that would never happen. Now, even without having an executive producer working on the content, like Little Baby Bum was a very dedicated creator team. You don't have those anymore. So now you're getting slop that just goes straight to it. And because the amount of investment to create the slop is so small, they're just spewing it everywhere. And so my advice to parents and my advice to everyone is don't trust autoplay, but especially with someone who can't curate their own content, like a child, do not trust autoplay because it will raise your child to be a weirdo in all the weird ways, and don't do that to your kid. Let your kid be raised by better content, or even better, just hang out with your kid and wake up in the morning. That was what we really learned. But
it's always an option. I think when we
didn't
were
mention
kids,
Hallmark, but do you want me to get to Hallmark eventually?
We can get to Hallmark eventually, but
Okay,
I do want to take this.
Go ahead.
We're going to call this episode Stream of Consciousness, but I think when we were kids, marketing toys was probably the primary purpose of a lot of the cartoons we watched and movies. Mm-hmm. And so there was always sort of like one lesson they'd tack at the end of the Transformers episode that's like, here's something you can walk away with. Here's a moral. And that was always kind of looked at as like cheap It's like, this isn't really great content for kids, but it's all right. There's a hero there. There's a bad guy. The good guy wins. This is something totally different. It's not selling anything. It's serving this robotic master, as you've described. And I think there's sort of a parallel with us and with a lot of our customers chasing that cycle with Google. Because,
well, it feels that way because you lose your soul, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. You're messaging in ways that maybe don't feel right. Now, we push it back against this because a lot of the trends in SEO over the past 10, 20 years, like you said, keyword stuffing, backlink stuffing, if they don't really serve the user, they end up getting kind of worked out as Google improves their algorithm.
You get
punished.
You get punished for it. And so all things end up being like, you can make hay while the sun's shining with SEO, but if you want longevity, you can't depend on black hat or gray hat.
And I think that's what we say. You just can't depend on SEO, search engine optimization alone. You have to optimize your content for the user, make it make sense, and keep them on the website because you have a reason you want them there. Unlike these YouTube channels, they don't care why anyone's watching it. They just know that kids are easy to capture, so they go with kid content.
Right. Well, and one of the things too that, is like we talk about SEO, which is search engine optimization, but human engine optimization is our bigger priority. Like that's what we're working on, is making content that humans will like. Because for our clients, when we're working on SEO, it's not just about winning the link war. We want to convert clients when they get to the page. So a lot of what you see, like again, with a recipe, the conversion on that page is about the traffic and is about trying to win ad revenue and all that stuff. So they're just trying to get you to the page. That's really their goal, trying to get you to the page, and actually your time on the page is going to increase their monetary value. Most of the businesses we work with, that's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is get a customer, get a client. They're trying to get a real person through. So for us, a focus on human engine optimization more than on search engine optimization is the real value. You have to consider your funnel, though. If they don't find you, it doesn't matter what's on your page. So you got to balance that. You got to have a good balance of getting the traffic and then the balance of bringing to your audience what they need, both meeting them where they are with the search, but then keeping them there and getting them content and value that they need, so much so that their value propositions are met in a way that you're basically an undeniable brand to them. Like they can't avoid working with you.
And I think it's important to point out for anyone listening, when Google adapts their algorithm, changes their algorithm, they don't put out new guidelines. They don't say this is best practices for our new search engine, because they're trying to essentially beat people who are trying to game their system. And so there is a process of reverse engineering after an update with Google where we're trying to figure out what the best tactics are, but we're never straying from, like you said, that human engine optimization, which at the end of the day, we're here to do something beyond just keep people on a screen.
Yeah, and there's just even like a blog that was written 10 years ago could be a great blog today. It could be from a search perspective. It actually has a better chance of being a great blog today for the fundamentals of the blog post itself. It could be better now because Google now is reading the blog. Their large language model and their algorithm is actually reading it and going like, what do we got here? Oh, this is good stuff. This is what people are looking for. I'm going to serve this up to a user that needs it, right? And so like the fundamentals of how Black Raven was around 10 years ago, but the fundamentals of how we would have written a blog 10 years ago could actually perform potentially better today than they would have 10 years ago, right? The way that an SEO charged blog was written 10 years ago would not perform better today. It would perform worse today, right? So human engine optimization is also a long play. And the other thing about human engine optimization is it is better for GEO, which is generative engine optimization. Generative engine, basically meaning LLMs, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. For the GEO stuff, that 10-year-old blog that was just written very well is actually good for chat. It's good for generative engine optimization. That's a good thing. And there are ways to improve it for it. But now the ways to improve it, I would say, are probably going to be good for a blog in 10 years as well. The caveat, though, is if you write a really awesome piece of content and it performs on SEO, that's great. if you write a really great piece of content and you get that clicked through from LinkedIn, it doesn't matter how it's SEO optimized. It matters that it was great content and people are going to be excited about it. If you take that content and you print it into a one-pager or a pamphlet and you hand it to somebody, it doesn't matter if it overperformed on SEO because now you've got great content and they're happy to read it. If you compile all of your fantastic content and you get enough of it and you compile it into a book and you give that to somebody, people are going to love it, right? So making great human engine optimized content is a marketing function. It still is. It's not saying no to SEO, but it's saying SEO needs to fit into a bigger context, which is the audience reading it. And so getting people on SEO is great, but getting people is the point. And so if you lose that why just to get click stuffing, that's why all the dumb YouTube videos were what they were. Their only goal was to get you into their funnel, right? Because the monetization was designed for that, right? Their only goal was to be the autoplay after a good show. They wanted to pop up right after you watch a Peppa Pig clip. They wanted to pop up right after that, or a Hulk clip, or a Spider-Man clip, or a SpongeBob clip. They wanted to show up next, right? So that world of getting people on there, like that was the purpose of it. If you make a video instead that's actually made for the viewer and actually trying to enrich their life and create value for them, and you're able to work the algorithms, you're never going to get delisted for what you do because you're creating great content, right? And that's where it matters. And creating human engine optimized content allows you to perform in other places than just on Google and use your content in a lot greater ways.
Absolutely. Well, do we want to tie this back to Hallmark? You had promised me. You promised
the
me.
Hallmark of it all. You said, I wonder if Hallmark is making these based off of search engine.
I really feel, and you know what? I'm probably not the only person to make this observation. We've got plenty of local businesses that are something like Haircuts in St. Louis or something very straight
Thai
to the
food
point.
near me.
Exactly.
If I could find Thai food near me, by the way, I want to go to the restaurant just for the SEO. Because
they seem like smart people. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. So 4 problems with YouTube were, 1, it was making them based off of keywords. 2, it was making them with English as a second language. So really, actually, I'll change this out to it didn't have a competent executive producer, okay? 3, they were procedurally generating them. And 4 was AI, right? Well, guess what? Hallmark is, yes, making them for keywords, but they're doing it with an executive producer in mind, right?
Right.
And what they're doing is they're not procedurally generating it. They've got this cast of real human beings they're bringing in. They're actually avoiding the AI stuff. So what is Hallmark movies today? And we're using Hallmark as a category of movies and specifically as a brand of movies. It's one of the most successful perennial things that happen in the year from a marketing standpoint. And there are people who love and are dedicated to it. We have a team member. She will remain nameless. It's Halloween. She has already started watching the Hallmark movies, and she has a calendar automation that alerts her to the releases of the new movies. So she is fully on board. Why? Because of the human engine optimization of it, right? Yes, they made them based off of keywords. It's like the Princess Christmas Diary, or they just add those things together, right? But what they do as an executive producer is looking at the trends, looking at what the audience actually wants, and they're doing fan service and creating them and putting DJ from Full House into another movie. And it's great, And so the vicious cycle of those 4 things that was happening on YouTube and what kind of represents bad SEO in the first place, Hallmark is not falling for.
And
they're
and
doing
I just
good
say,
SEO.
They are. I want to heap more praise on Hallmark. I think they understand, too, the appeal of their movies. And they do add camp for the people in the room who maybe would be more inclined to make fun of it. They add jokes and camp for those people.
Like,
too.
look, we're making fun of it too. And then the other people in the room are like, we don't care. Give me my sweater and tea, So they like it. And so I think honestly, Hallmark is representative of basically you break the vicious cycle.
Balance. Yeah, this is the balance we were talking about.
Yeah, because you break that vicious cycle of content. And so they stop it at the producer. And they actually bring somebody in who's going to shepherd that content. And that's something, too, for us, what we have been fighting for, through this AI war that we're battling, is you and I are AI enthusiasts. We're AI boomers, if that's the right term. I feel like boomers got too much heavy connotation, but there's doomers and there's boomers.
Enthusiast might even be a
zoomers.
little bit too strong for me. I'm highly interested because of how it impacts my life and my work. And also, I'm highly cautious because as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about LLMs, and LLMs, especially something like ChatGPT, is just behind the times on some things. It's behind the times on SEO best practices. So I would imagine a lot of people are going into ChatGPT and asking it for guidance on SEO and getting old or bad advice. And so,
Well, it's always derivative. I mean, like, you think about it, it's summing the internet effectively. And so what it's doing is it's summing content out there. So let's go back to the recipe factor, right? If you ask ChatGPT for the best old-fashioned, I do like bourbon. If you go to it for the best old-fashioned recipe, it will give you sort of a standard old-fashioned recipe. Now, it benefits from the fact that it's not going to give you the fluff that was at the top of all those pages, but it loses because the best old-fashioned recipe out there is probably something that a bartender could show you that has never made it to the internet. What made it to the internet was something that they could keyword stuff with best old-fashioned recipe, and there was a bunch of content above it. So ChatGPT is going to assess that and get it all together and bring it in, right? If you had an expert mixologist friend and you said, make me the best old-fashioned, they would do a better job. Now let's take it to what you said, which was, how do I do the best SEO? What you're going to get from ChatGPT is not the actual best practice of SEO. What you're going to get is the summation of the information that's been provided by the internet that performed the best on SEO, not necessarily communicated the best practices for SEO, right? And this is true for any marketing principle.
Yeah, I read a story about organizations seeding fake legal cases online. Basically just full fake legal case and putting them all over the internet. And this is, I think, the organization that actually you can subscribe to get access to real legal cases. I think that, speculation is that they're somehow involved in that. And it's almost like you can't blame them. I mean, it's kind of smart.
Yeah, no, it is very reactionary.
I should explain, right? Like, the point of that is to make it impossible to use ChatGPT or to use an LLM as your legal advisor. Right. Because now that ChatGPT is reading a bunch of false information. Whereas,
it's reading a bunch of false information, but it's also bad at reading real information too. I was arguing with my new girlfriend, Grok, because her and I talk all the time when I'm driving. And we were hanging out, and Grok, she sounds beautiful, I know, but her and I were talking, and I was actually trying to get something done. And so I wanted her to, I had this really cool prompt I developed to do an assessment that's just, you just talk to it and it does an assessment for you on the 6 types of working genius. Stay tuned for a future episode because there's no way I'm going to avoid talking about that at some point, but I digress. So I made an assessment because I love playing with ideas, and I was playing with the idea and just having fun. And so I made up an assessment myself. You can get an assessment from them. I love Patrick Lencioni. I love the Table Group. Their assessment is if you've done anything with the Working Genius already, it's so easy to fake the thing to get the results you want. It's not even hard. So I was like, these assessments, it's the classic assessment survey process. Give us a 1 to 3 rating, and then we'll give you your answer. And I did it, and I got exactly the answer I expected. So I was playing around with Grok and getting a voice prompted ask me the questions and then give me an assessment and put together a big paragraph about who I am and make it much more customized. It was really cool. The prompt engineering, I will say, was good. But Grok was not. And so Grok on voice cannot do anything it's supposed to do, right? And so I can't, like, the prompt was probably about 500 words, maybe 1,000, okay? It kept saying the only way I can get that in there is to read it out to it, which fundamentally wouldn't have worked. The microphone probably would have cut off before I finish, as you get annoyed with AI, right? So then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to put it on a web page because I know I can look at web pages. So I started asking it to look at a web page on my website that I made with only the prompt on it. It lied every single time about the content of the webpage. And I actually pulled up the browser view of it because I like parked and I was like, pulled up the browser view of the website and I'm looking at it. It's so funny because it's so stupid. It's just completely wrong. And every time you tell it's wrong, you're like, you're totally right. I mean, here's what it actually says. And it would make up something else because it couldn't read the webpage, right? Well, that hallucination cannot be understated as an extremely dangerous function of AI. It is very, very dangerous that it hallucinates because it confidently tells you the wrong information. So the way that worked bad for me that day was when it started hallucinating, I thought my website was hacked. I thought it was hacked. The name of it is the Working Genius Assessment. So I named the landing page /working. It kept telling me that it was a recruiting page for what seemed like the spoofed recruiting page. And it was nuts. It was nuts because it was like, oh, it just says full remote work, benefits day one, apply today, which is what looks like a spam recruiting page. And it kept telling me this. And I'm like, what is that URL? And I thought I was being hacked. I thought my IP was getting switched. And this can happen. It knew that I was me, so it kept faking it for me. But then whenever another user would get on there, it was doing it. And I'm like, what page on the website is this? And it was the page. I'm like, this is crazy. And it was saying it said stuff my page didn't say. And it said something about asynchronous work. And I'm like, what? That would never be on our website, right? Well, it was fake. I mean, it wasn't doing that. It was just hallucinating those things onto my website. And it ran me down a rabbit hole of thinking my website was hacked, which is a big deal when you run a web development company. And so that weird world of Grok, like hallucinating, actually took time out of my day and took real effort and energy out of the beginning of my day. The worst time to spoil your day is the beginning of it, right?
Right.
And so it spoiled the beginning of my day and my productivity that day because it hallucinated. Yes. And that is really, really weird. And we can't understate the risk that you run when you depend on an LLM that will just straight up lie to you about stuff and just be wrong and not even realize it.
This might be in the weeds for anyone listening, but if you've made it this far, it probably isn't in the weeds. When I use LLMs, and I think a lot of people do, they keep chats open on given topics. I've stopped doing that. I found that it's a bad idea because as that chat gets very long, you have more opportunity for hallucination, wrong information creeping in. So I'm constantly starting new chats using validated data from a notebook. And so I found that process to save me a lot of headaches. But yeah, it's a good hazard to point out for sure.
You just said notebook as shorthand. You meant capital N notebook LM from Google, which is different.
Yeah,
right. Like you didn't literally write it out. You actually prompted it with a data lake of information, which is a process it's necessary. The other thing though, and getting back to our, what human beings can do, you have the wherewithal to ride that ride with AI. So you're prompting it, you're looking at it and going, not right. Not only do you know that it's not right, you've now learned how to get the right content out of it, and you're willing to stick with it. The impatience of most people to go, this is wrong, I got to give up, is very prevalent. Most people just give up on getting good stuff, or they trust what they got the first time out without validating it at all because they're not subject matter experts. And so that world of like putting yourself in the hands of AI is still very risky and dangerous. And if we asked it for legal advice, it would probably give us bad legal advice because it was tricked. And then we would be tricked, and then we would firmly believe it. So the better advice is to get a subject matter expert on the law and have them walk you through it, or go to a trusted source of data like something that has data laked only good case law and then is going to give you a better response. That's why every lawyer has that library of books behind them. That's cases, that's like real stuff. And most of them probably never crack them open, but the content of those books is law. And so they're going through and they're actually accessing that because they want to make sure they're coming from the right spot. ChatGPT is not coming from a good place. They're coming from a bad place.
Well, today we've discussed how Hallmark movies exemplify the human engine optimization process that I'm not going to say that, but I think it's a good analog for.
No, I'm going to firmly say that HEO, human engine optimization, I'm okay calling it Hallmark engine optimization too. I'm giving them
internally,
I'm giving them the firm kudos of saying, you did it, guys. Great work.
But the last thing we have to talk about today is a little bit of personal branding that you're wearing. And it's a new friend of yours named Schwartz.
Yeah. So first of all,
can we get that in the shot?
This is amazing. Okay. I don't know if you're getting enough of it.
So for a listener, he's got a shirt that says, "May the Schwartz be with you." You know, like from Spaceballs, if you're familiar.
I would have said, "May the Schwartz be with yous."
Sure.
But
yep.
Yeah, but it would be weird on a shirt. But his name is Jeff Schwartz, and he's a lawyer. And he gave me this shirt in the last week, and it made me so happy. And I was like, I'm wearing this on the next podcast. This was my next thing, right?
This is not a product he sells. This is something that made you happy, and it made you remember his name. It would make me remember his name. Yeah. So I want to say my name is Nick Hibbler, last name Hibbeler. My dad was a roofer, and some of his friends and family. Well, he does copper flashing now, which you know it's a little bit more specialized, but.
This was like he
goes up on the roof. He goes up on the roof.
They knew your dad as a copper guy.
Yeah, he's the copper guy in town. But yeah, so when we were kids, I don't remember who made the shirts, but they screen printed Hibbler on the roof.
Yes.
And I think that's what your Schwartz shirt reminded me of. It's not apropos to anything here, but I had to tell you about Hibbler on the roof because I got to get that shirt back. And
with the price of copper, I think that you could turn it around and say, now, because of the price of copper, he is a rich man. Diddle, diddle, diddle. Like, it would work. Yeah. Like, you could keep the joke going.
That's why he does.
I thought you were going to show me Nicholas Hibbler on a can. Do you not have it?
Yeah, let me show you the older. Yeah, this is older family branding, and this is for the people watching. This could be.
And this is. You guys are about to experience something that's about one of the coolest facts about Nicky.
I think it's pretty cool. This is a family branded.
Zoom in
item.
on that. Get a close up on it. Look at that. That is so cool.
And you see this was a St. Louis based cigar company that was run by my great grandfather.
What do you store in there? Do you put something in there now? You just smell it.
I've got a copy of like a bill of sale.
Wow.
My grandfather gave me this. And then I've got this here. This is a bottle opener. It says Hibbler Cigar Co. And you can cut the end of your cigar. You can tamp your cigar.
Dude. I like everything about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this was given to me on Christmas, my first Christmas. So we'll tie it back. You've been listening to the Roundtable Marketing Podcast, the podcast where we talk about marketing among other things. My name is Nick. Thanks for joining us. Brian, anything else to say as we sign off?
Yeah, may the Schwartz be with all of us, I would say. And happy Halloween, even though this will certainly not be coming out on Halloween Day.
The week after. And some of us will be in our Hallmark era, and some of us will still be watching the scary movies.
Yeah. And there will be people like me who are watching neither. Oh, no, I'm watching something scary-ish. I'm watching Wednesday.
YouTube. Oh, right, of course.
Yeah. I'm watching the latest season of Wednesday.
It's a good show.
I mean, it's spooky. It's not scary. It's creepy, kooky, but it doesn't scare me. Telling my wife about Douglas Adams and the history of the Adams family scares her. So that's really the problem.
She's the next
not
episode.
Interested at all. So, adios.
Is that how you end an episode? Bye.
Adios.
See you next time. Adios.
Well, we could end it in the way that I end all things now, which is by saying the end.
The end.
It's a phenomenon. It's sweeping across the nation to end your statements with the end.
I'm bad at ending things, so let's adopt that.
The end.